Hey, beautiful soul. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the No BS Human Design Podcast. Today, we are airing an episode that is a recording of a panel I was on that I just found so impactful. Not even just me, the people who attended also found it extremely impactful. And it was bringing four different people, all with similar goals and similar teachings together from incredibly different systems or modalities or whatever tool of choice that they work with. And so I think it was really cool to see all the different aspects and how so many of us are working toward the same goal and helping women in the same way, but there's such a plethora of abundant options for you to choose from as for how you to get there. If you've been around for a while, you know that I talk about it doesn't matter what system resonates with you, whether it's human design, numerology, astrology, it doesn't matter what system. You will find your answers when you find the one that resonates with you. And this is very similar. It's not so much a spiritual panel. It was actually a lot more what I would consider to be mainstream, but I think that's a good mix to have. I think it's nice to have some spirituality, some health, some actual psychological, mental health therapy style, cognitive behavioral therapy style tools all being woven into the same thing. So you can pick and choose what feels really good for you and what resonates with your energy. So I was approached by the wonderful Barbara Pike Gonzales to do this panel. And I happened to already know the other two women who were on it. So I immediately said yes because I know that I love the other two women and I knew we would vibe together. And made this panel that Barbara calls Making Waves. So Barbara is a personal branding and communications expert with a deep passion for empowering women to be seen and be known while still staying authentic to who they are. And her Making Waves panel, we are officially the first one who ever did this panel, but she continues to host these. The point of this is for you to find what resonates with you, for you to be inspired, for you to feel like you can lead within who you're authentically meant to be. So naturally, human design falls into that category, which is why she asked me. But we also have the wonderful Justine Carino, who has been on the podcast before. She's a licensed mental health counselor. And she has a really cool podcast called Thoughts from the Couch. You may have listened because we did run ads on here for Thoughts from the Couch in the past. Very, very good at all things anxiety, if that feels like it floats your boat. But Justine has over 12 years experience and uses both cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and family systems techniques when working with people. And then we have Lindsey Kaszuba, who is a certified health coach and founder of Lindsey Kaszuba Health. She's very much on a mission to simplify wellness for women so that their health fits into their busy lifestyles without all the overwhelm. Then, of course, you have me with human design and energetics and all of that good stuff. So it's a really powerful connection of women who do completely different things, but who all have the same goal for you. So, what you're about to hear is the recording of that panel. I trust that it's going to be everything you need to hear today while I am off gallivanting in Florida in my retreat with the other women and my partner, Viola. I love you so much. Thank you for being here with me, and I will see you next week. Welcome to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm Adriana Keefe, human design coach and motivational speaker. I went through my quarter-life crisis in my 20s and had to learn how to navigate through finding what I was meant to be doing with my life. I refused to believe in the culture that said we were all meant to have the same path and boring careers until we retire and die. And along my journey, I found human design, a system that reveals your energetic blueprint, showing you where and how to access your body's consciousness and how to live as your true self. Human design changed my life, so I started sharing it with others and changing their lives, but we were all finding the same problem: a lack of resources that explain the system in easy and useful ways. So I created this show where we dive deep into the lessons of the human design system without the BS and the noise you find on the internet. Listen in for lessons in human design, finding your purpose, manifestation and spiritual practices, human design within business, and so much more. We connect with other experts in the human design and spiritual realm in a refreshingly honest way to help you find your way along your spiritual path and live this life with intention. It's time to let go of the societal expectations of being and let yourself find abundance through being uniquely you. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone. I am so thrilled to have you here on the first of the Making Waves virtual panel discussion. My name is Barbara Pike Gonzales. I am the founder of BPG Personal Branding and the host and the moderator for today's discussion. I really wanted to bring this topic to life because I'm seeing so many women, leaders, founders, all across the
She freeze for you guys?
Yeah, she
Yeah.
froze.
are struggling to intuition who they truly are.
Barbara,
And
we
there are
just
several
lost you for a
reasons.
second. If you could hear us,
Oh,
could you?
okay.
Sorry,
I can hear you.
there.
That's okay.
Okay,
Am I
sorry,
good?
you cut out for a little bit.
Okay, perfect. Everything's good now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So again, just starting out with the whole reason behind this panel discussion is that we're really finding that women across the board are really struggling with connecting with their intuition, making decisions, whether that's personal or professional, that are really aligned with who they are. And oftentimes that starts with knowing who they are and making sure that they're coming from a place of authenticity. And so that's why I am so excited to bring this panel of experts to you to dive deeper into this conversation. So without further ado, I will let each of you introduce yourselves. And if you could just share your name, the name of your business, where you're based, and a little bit about the clients that you serve and how you support them. So, Justine, I will start with you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me a part of this discussion. I know it is so important. I've been through it myself, trying to figure out how to trust myself. So I'm happy to talk about this with everyone else. My name is Justine Carino. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I have a private practice in New York and Connecticut. And we provide individual, family, and couples therapy. And we also offer some coaching services, and we specialize in treating anxiety disorders. And I help people set better boundaries in their lives. I help people improve their relationships with friends and family and themselves. And I also host a podcast called Thoughts from the Couch.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Adriana, would you like to introduce yourself, a little bit about you and the people that you serve?
I would love to. Thank you for having me. This is like the most epic lineup of different perspectives on the same topic. This is going to be awesome. So my name is Adriana Keefe. I am an intuitive human design expert and speaker from Central Massachusetts. I'm also a mom of 3 and a wife. So for those mamas listening who are just like, I can't put myself first, I have been there 1,000%. I specialize in embodiment. And what I mean by that is after any sort of trauma or dissociation from the body, really learning how to reconnect with your body and listen to the cues that will help guide you. So knowing and trusting yourself, exactly what we're talking about here. I am also hosting a retreat, and I do one-to-one coaching and chart readings and all the fun stuff within human design, as well as a podcast called the No BS Human Design Podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, like we said, just such an important topic for really everyone. And so I'm so excited to share this with everyone. Lindsey, would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit about you and the women that you serve?
Yes. Yeah, this is an incredible lineup. And I've listened to both podcasts and they're incredible. I'm Lindsey Kaszuba. I'm a certified health coach. My business is Lindsey Kaszuba Health, and I specialize in helping women, specifically female entrepreneurs, to create really simple shifts in their health. And that often comes through their daily habits and just really finding a realistic way to add those into our busy lifestyles, because it doesn't have to be so overwhelming and frustrating. It can be really simple and easeful.
Fantastic.
I'm in New York City, and I have 3 kids as well. They're 5, 3, and 1.
So you're in the thick of it.
I'm in the thick of it.
I'm
so
in
connecting to my intuition is something I do literally every day.
Like, guide me, guide me. Yeah, I'm in
Lots
the
of
middle of
deep
a
breaths over here.
high school and middle school girls. So I'm in the thick of it in a different way, for sure. Okay. Let's kind of dive in to the questions that we have. So the first question, Justine, we'll start with you. In your experience, how would you describe the connection with the women that you work with in terms of them really knowing who they are and trusting their intuition? And where do you think this stems from in terms of their connection to themselves?
Yeah, so I gave this question a little bit of thought, and I was more inclined to think about what gets in the way of really listening to our intuition, because I think we're all born with this gut instinct and intuition, and then things just clog it up. So for someone that specializes in treating anxiety disorders, I've often found that worry and the catastrophic thinking gets in the way of this. When we struggle with anxiety, big, small, anxiety is on a spectrum, decision making can become very overwhelming. And we start to feel crippled because we feel like any move is going to be the wrong move. We catastrophize and think of all the worst case scenarios. All of the what ifs start to block us. And we get used to overthinking things to try and control, to be perfect, to get predictable outcomes for ourselves and our family members or our business. And the brain and the cortex, this thinking part of our brain, takes over. And we forget to start to listen to our hearts. Back in ancient Egypt, when they used to mummify people, they would throw out the brain, but they would take really good care of the heart. And I think we've started to forget about this piece. Our heart tends to know the truth and the answers. We just get in the way of ourselves. And sometimes it's really scary. Like, we know what we need to do. We know what our heart is telling us, but that seems so uncomfortable, so terrifying that we kind of make up excuses to try a million other things first to avoid having to listen to that heart. But it haunts us. Our heart will haunt us until we start to listen to it. So I also think that perfectionism, that people pleasing tends to take over too. And we say yes to things we don't really want to do. And we start to abandon ourselves. And that becomes this default. So some women don't even know what they're choosing isn't what they truly want for themselves. It's just based on this programming and conditioning of having to say yes, having to decide things because they think it's the right thing, but they're not really listening to what they truly need. And a lot of this conditioning comes from society and the families that raised us.
You're absolutely right. And, and it's interesting with kind of the difference between kind of the heart and the head and Adriana, that makes me think with you and the intuitive human design that you provide that guidance to your client. So I'm curious with that lens, what are you seeing in the women that you're working with in terms of their connection and their knowing and trusting of themselves? And where do you see that either getting in their way or supporting them on more of the positive side?
First of all, I love the mummy reference. I did not know that, and I'm taking that with me forever now. So thank you for that, Justine.
You're welcome. When I learned that, it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, we really need to go back to our roots.
Yes, 1,000%. And I'll definitely piggyback on what Justine was saying with the societal conditioning. That's one of the biggest things that I talk about in my work, because even, especially when you're a mom and you have these intuitive responses, even as simple as like bringing your child to the pediatrician, there's ways that they're continuing to disempower us. I had a friend who knew something was wrong with her newborn, and the pediatrician kept saying, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. But she finally listened to herself and went to see someone else. He has cerebral palsy. And all of these areas of our life telling us that they know better, which of course, like Justine has different degrees that I don't have. She obviously knows more about some things, right? But also giving the power back to the mom, giving the power back to the woman, and asking, what is it that you think is going on? What do you feel is happening? But over time, we're just constantly told that we're wrong, or we're being judgy, or we're being crazy, the typical crazy girl having all these thoughts. And naturally, that takes away our power. And add in the layer of so many women have had some sort of assault, some especially physically, but it could also be verbally or anything like that, that removes us from our body because our nervous system freezes and it's keeping us safe. It's doing the smartest thing it knows in that moment. And especially if there's been repetitive traumas of anything, then we no longer feel our body. I used to pride myself on the fact that I never cried. And it turned out I was just extremely numb. You could talk about puppies right now and I'll start crying because of how much healing and connection I have done. And I love that about myself now. So really learning to take the power back and trust that it's okay and it's safe to follow what feels right, to learn how to listen to your body. This right now has been the most powerful time that I've ever seen in my life for women, especially. I think it must have started with COVID because women were all like, what am I doing with my life? And you're starting to see all these people coming out of the woodwork being like, you know what, my body is telling me something's off here and we're listening to it. I think we've always had that, but right now women are really listening to it. So it's been really cool to see over the past few years the changes within women who are just deciding to put themselves first and listen to themselves.
I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's conversations like this, and obviously the work that the three of you do as well. The more that we talk about it, the more that we normalize it, then the women that have either felt shame or felt they weren't worthy of going with their intuition because it was always, putting everyone else first, the more that we talk about that and the more that we normalize, no, we deserve a place at the table. We deserve our voices to be heard. We deserve that connection with what is truly serving us or what doesn't serve us. That's when the real change happens, is when dialogues like these continue to happen. So thank you for that expertise. So Lindsey, what do you think in terms of, I know more kind of on the wellness side, even relative to, similar to what Adriana was just saying about listening to your body and being connected enough to know when things are off and when things are okay, and you want to keep going in that okay direction. What are you seeing from the women that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I agree so much with both of what you said. And I mean, I have 3 young kids, and you can see it, whether you have children or not, that everyone is born with an intuition. There is this like sense of inner knowing within all of us, and it's the conditioning and it's all of the habits that are piled on top of it that we have to pull off so we can really connect to our bodies. And that is something that took me a very long time to figure out, that I was disconnected to my body, like decades of my life that I was disconnected. And it took a long time and a lot of practice to reconnect to it. But I think there's this sense of awareness that we all have. And it's just really being able to advocate for yourself in that way. And that can look different in different areas of your life. And for me, a lot of what I see and what I talk about is the connection to food and the connection to movement and that connection to wellness and whatever that means for you. And so I think when you can really start to pull off of these bricks on top of the intuition and the connection, is you start to see that it is actually really quite simple. And when we eat foods, our body feels a certain way. And if you just, we live in a noisy world, right? Like we're constantly on multiple screens at one time, hearing guidance from this person and this person and this person. And Google gives us 17 different scientific research studies on what to eat and what diet to follow and what workout to do. And it's overwhelming. It's extremely confusing. And so if we were to follow all the guidance really from other people, it's just broad recommendations. It's not specific to us, and it ignores our individuality, and it ignores our intuition as a person, as an individual. And so I think when you can sort of step back and see that, you can start to connect to what you need. And that's something that I do every single day in my life. When I eat, I'm like, okay, what do I need right now? And if I'm in a hurry and I'm overwhelmed and I'm frustrated and I'm frazzled and anxious and the kids are all screaming, it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. But if I'm standing in front of the refrigerator, I'm like, okay, what do I need right now? And it's kind of taking a moment before you act to really ask yourself, because our body speaks to us in So many different ways. And, some of the ways that are very physical for us to see firsthand is like aches and pains. Your body is saying something, and those get stronger and stronger and more painful. Sensations, emotions, feelings, gut instincts, like these are all ways that our bodies speak to us. And so I think when we start to realize that that's actually intel, it's a download, it's a message, it's a voice saying, hey, this needs attention. And when we ignore it, which we often do because we live in a noisy world, it just gets louder and it gets stronger. And at the end of the day, like that's what disease is. It's dis-ease in our body. And it will start shouting at you until it's crippling and you're in so much pain, or, whatever the symptoms are loud and you can't ignore them. And so I think when you can take a step back and really see that is something that your body is trying to tell you, that it needs something different or it needs more attention in a different way, it can really start to strengthen that intuition. And I think really it's being able to take a pause for a moment to notice that something is off and something doesn't feel right. And then it's like trusting, just what Justine was saying. I love the mummy reference too. It's amazing. Is trusting yourself that is something that needs attending to, whether it makes sense in your mind or not. Like really paying attention to that and leaning into it is, I think, so important, and reconnecting that, because it is a process and it's a practice, and you have to do it over and over again to really get better at it.
I love that. So I had mentioned earlier that I have two teenage daughters. I have a 13-year-old daughter in specific that recently she had eaten something that really upset her stomach. And so I said, maybe we should not have that again, or at least take a long break until we have it again. And her immediate reaction was like, no, I'll eat it again because I like the taste of it. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, she's a 13-year-old. I get it. But in my mind too, it's also from that young age, teaching them to understand how something feels, like making that correlation. I ate this, it tasted good in the moment, did not make me feel good. And I love and honor my body and myself enough where I'm not going to have that. And I know that that's something that will take a while for her to get to and to mature to, but I feel like if it's something that I at least can start that conversation with her now of, hey, that didn't make you feel good. If you love yourself enough, don't make decisions that don't feel good. And so
Absolutely.
I'm trying. I know
it takes time. She's 13. That's like the hardest age.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, I feel like at least I said it so I can check the box like I'm trying.
I do want to add something to that though. Yes. The actual act of eating tells the body it's safe, right? Because if we're running from a lion, then we're obviously not eating, right? So sometimes that's one of my biggest crutches that I've learned over the years of healing, was that I was leaning on food because that told my body everything was safe. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Justine, but just some food for thought too. It's like it's a safety response from the body in a lot of situations. So maybe if she's a higher stress with school starting or anything like that, you might see more of that happening.
Absolutely, yeah. Totally agree. And it's a sense of comfort, right? Like if I'm eating, I'm slowing down, something's feeling good, I have good input and stimulus for me, and it does feel safe and comfortable to sit and eat. And sometimes we depend on that comfort at times.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And I think there's that stability there too. Like, okay, food is here, everything is good, everything is normal. No, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
I'm also thinking of this innate intuition, right? And it starts so young. My daughter's only 3, and she is so strong-willed, and she says no like nobody's business. And it was such a trigger for me as a parent. It would drive me crazy, right? I wanted to control her. I wanted her to do things. I wanted her to do things my way. I wanted to do things that I thought they were best for her. And that's the opposite of me. I'm struggling with overcoming my own people pleasing. That's something that started at a young age. So to see her say no and really not care what anybody thinks about it, it was making me crazy until a switch went off. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a gift. Like, she's not comfortable in her swimming lessons. she feels unsafe, she should say no, right? She doesn't want to do something she doesn't want to do just to appease me or other people. I should really praise that. So from such a young age, we know what feels right and wrong, what feels safe for us. And if I were to just keep pushing her to do things because I thought they were good for her, then she starts to ignore herself and her intuition. And it's just so interesting how we could see it in young girls.
Yeah, you're so right. And it is, there's that. I always say my daughter was the same way. And I would always say, this is going to serve her really well when she's older. But right now, I would love just a little bit of,
It's hard.
just a little bit would be amazing.
Just appease me. Just do what I say, please, at all times.
Exactly. When you're older, you can say no all the time. And
Yeah.
That's what my husband always say. We have a 3-year-old that is exactly, she's so strong-willed. It's insane. And I'm always like, I don't want her to lose it. I just want her to lose it for right now.
Yeah.
Like, I want her to
Just
keep
do
it.
this.
It's just a real pain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and now I really want to dive into really kind of tangible things that the women listening on the panel can take away and from each of the three of your areas of expertise as we think about, we all have, as we've mentioned, so much on our plate, so much noise coming at us, not even to mention everything that we've brought with us from our childhood and how we have been conditioned. What are, maybe it's a couple of tips or even just habits or strategies, anything that comes to mind, again, kind of based on each of your areas of expertise and your perspective, that the listeners can take away of, okay, whether that's an awareness of something or tangible action. Lindsey, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few that are really kind of, even for me, like non-negotiables in my day. So the first one is the power of the pause. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's really just taking a pause. It can literally be 30 seconds before you take action into the thing. So, I'll use eating because that's an easy one, is if you're trying to break a late night snacking addiction or habit you don't want to keep doing. So when you're moving into that action or that habit, just stop for a moment and be like, okay, now this is when I need to make a different decision. Like what? So that's step one, is just take a pause, separate yourself from the action so it's not so automatic. So it becomes more of an awareness that you're making that decision and that choice. And then something that I think is non-negotiable that you can do and apply in every single area of your life is just ask yourself what you need right now and learn how your body responds. It could be in your heart. It could be you have this thought or this word that pops up, or you have this like natural instinct, or all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that sounds really good. Ooh, I want something like kind of carby, or I'm really hungry. Start feeling into your body and kind of stepping outside of your mind, if that makes sense. Because we so often overrule our body's quick natural decisions of what it needs with what we think we should have or shouldn't have, or what we think we need, instead of just listening to what we actually need. And so if you pause for a moment, you can see that. And then if you ask yourself, what do I need right now? You can, and maybe it won't come right away the first time you ask the question, but the more and more you ask and the more you practice, it does become more natural. And I will literally stand in front of the refrigerator. I'm like, what do I need right now? And I'm like, okay, I want something really cheesy. And I'm like, okay, let's roll with it. Like, and so once you do that thing, so you take a quick pause, you ask yourself what you need. And then after you have the thing, it can be a food, it can be a movement practice, it could be a work project, it could be how you spoke to your partner or your kids, whatever the thing is. Ask how it made you feel and connect to the underlying feeling of it. Because when we connect to how that thing or how that food or that movement made us feel, we start to connect back to our body, and we can start to connect back to, well, that food that I ate didn't make my stomach feel good. And actually, like, I don't feel well at all. Or maybe that food that you ate is completely drained you and you're exhausted now, instead of the opposite effect. You wanted comfort and energy and you are exhausted and feel like you need to sit on the couch for a little while and take a nap. And so just realizing that the things that we consume, whether it's food, movement, information, conversations, affect how we feel. And so when you can start to kind of put those together, they're all extremely simple practices. They cost no money. and you can do them anywhere. And so that's really kind of my favorite thing is you take a pause, you ask what you need, and you ask how that thing made you feel. And those are really like baseline. They will help you connect to your intuition. They will help you eat in a way that your body needs to get the energy and the strength. They will help you move in a way that is not exhausting. They will help you like take on projects and say yes to the things that you actually have energy for. It can really relate to all of your life. But those are my three like top favorite tools.
I love that. And I think also, I think that that's something that we can expand to so many areas in my life. I've been doing that. We were talking earlier about social media, and I've been really taking inventory of that, looking at what's in my feed and who's in my feed and the content that I'm consuming. And I have stopped and asked myself, okay, how does that make me feel? Is it nourishing? Is it inspiring? Is it making me feel the way I don't want to feel?
Yeah.
And I think it's that, and it's also the people that we surround ourselves with. Are we, again, inspired, supported, uplifted by the people in our lives, or are they draining? Are they not aligned with who we want to be and the people that we want to surround ourselves with? So I love that pause, like you said, and taking that inventory and just connecting with yourself and how does this make me feel? And is this the way that I want to feel? And if it's not,
yes, exactly. And then you can shift and adjust. And one of my favorite things about it is you build this like what I call it a Rolodex of all of the things that feel really great and all the things that don't. So you can start to do more of the things that do feel really great and less of the things that don't. Not to say that you're never going to eat the things that don't make you feel well, of course, like of course you will, but you have an awareness over it now. And maybe instead of eating, 2 slices of pizza, you eat one and then reanalyze, ask yourself, how does this feel? Do I feel okay? Can I have another piece? Should I stop? And you can really adjust and pivot in a really simple way. And that's why I love this, because I think when you start to connect to your body and your intuition, it all does become simpler because you have this inner voice and it's easier to kind of ignore the outside external circumstances and guidance and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and all the rules and all the things, and just listen to yourself. And then it really simplifies all of it and every aspect of life, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that also really helps to build that trust in yourself because you are making those decisions that you have committed to. Okay, the decisions that I'm making are for my betterment. They are serving me.
Exactly.
And so therefore, all of the decisions that I am making I can trust my decisions because I know it's coming from a rooted place of what is aligned to me. And Adriana, I think that's a perfect segue to you and kind of the human design work that you do in terms of, yeah, tangible steps or knowledge or awareness with the people that you work with, or even for yourself in your own life to really build that strengthened connection, trusting, knowing intuition.
Absolutely. This is something that I teach my clients every single day because they're all busy moms and they need simple. So I'll give 3, but just take something that feels good. Don't take it all. The first definitely being that when someone is asking you to do something, or maybe your school newsletter is like, we need someone for the PTO, whatever thing you would normally overstep your own boundaries for to do, because that's what we're taught, especially as moms, is to go do all the things. Ask yourself if you have the energy for it. That's one of the easier ways, I would say, to be able to start trying to tap into your body. Do I feel exhausted thinking about doing this? Or do I feel excited thinking about doing this? Would it feel good to have done? And not in a sense of people pleasing and trying to make another happy. Would it feel good for me to have done? How will I feel after? Can be something that feels a little bit more attainable as far as connecting to the body. Second, learning an easy on the go energy moving kind of modality. And by that, I mean, I use tapping, emotional freedom technique, with my clients and in my everyday life because it is something that's been scientifically proven to help move energy, move emotion. It was developed for veterans with PTSD. And this has been one of the biggest players in my trauma healing and evolution. So it can be done literally just like driving in the car, you're tapping your hand on the steering wheel or something. And in that moment, it can bring you back to your body, back to the now. It's the only tool I've ever been able to access, medication included, that's gotten me out of active panic attacks. And it's something that you can find on YouTube. I really like Brad Yates. He's been doing it on YouTube for like 15 years, like before it was cool. So find someone reputable who you can learn from. It's really easy. You're just tapping on points of your body to calm the nervous system, essentially. And the third being, this is one of my rules that I live by every single day. It's based on the Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I would say to put yourself in situations that the people surrounding you make you proud to be in that circle because they encourage you to put yourself first, to listen to your body. They are showing you how to listen to your body. They're showing you how to nurture the body, right? And of course, when we are on this personal spiritual development journey, I think all of us here could raise our hands that we've outgrown friendships, that we've outgrown relationships, because when you're on this journey, not everyone wants to go along with you. And so finding new, fresh people to surround yourself with that make you really proud because they're continuing to allow you to tune yourself back into you is going to be massive. I mean, this is why my partner and I started hosting a retreat. Like, we want to bring these women together who kept telling us they were so lonely and let them create that forest of their own, that like-minded collective of their own. So those would be my big 3 that you could take something from.
I love that. I love that. And absolutely, I'm taking all 3 for sure. And I love that, do I have the energy for it? Because again, I think that for many of us, whether this is in a professional setting of just, kind of the winner's curse, right? Oh, she'll get it done. Let's go ahead and just assign it to her. Or if it is personal things, I don't think that our initial instinct is to do that pause, like Lindsey said, and think, do I have the energy for it? It's like, yep, I should do it. My coworkers are expecting it. My boss is expecting it. My team is expecting it. My family is expecting it, whatever it is, but not actually feeling empowered enough to make that decision for ourselves. And again, I feel like this is another thing that the more we normalize this, hearing women say, you know what, I don't have the energy for that right now. I know it's oftentimes we use the word bandwidth, but I love energy because it's more personal and more connected. And not to say that I'm not interested, not to say that I don't want to support XYZ, but I don't have it right now to give. And being able to say that and having it received in a respected way, that's just giving us all that power and permission. Not that we need permission, but you know what I'm saying, to do that for ourselves. I love that idea.
And I'm not saying it's easy to start playing with boundaries like that. It might
Absolutely.
not be at all. But I just realized that Justine and I had a similar conversation just a month ago. She asked me to do something and I asked her to do something, but we were both like, oh, this just doesn't feel good right now. Let's circle back to this in September. And so as difficult as it can be in the beginning, when you are exercising what feels good and what doesn't in boundaries, especially with family, just know that the more you stand strong in what feels good for you, you are going to surround yourself with people who get that. For people who don't get that, for people who get offended or don't want to wait for whatever it is that I'm offering or whatever, I'm like, okay, you're just not my people, and that's fine. And then I find my people.
Yes, I love that. Perfect segue, Justine. I would love to hear your perspective as well on tangible steps, action items, either again that you personally have incorporated into your routine in your life, and obviously with the people that you work with.
Definitely. So being a therapist, I'm going to recommend therapy or coaching, right? This is something that doesn't have to be long term. It could be 1 to 2 times a month. I have some clients that only see me once a month, sometimes twice a month, because that is your solid hour to focus on yourself and hear yourself talk out loud. But at the same time, that's where you're going to start to unpack and break down these unhelpful core beliefs that you've created about how you should be as a woman, how you should be as a business owner, how you should be as a professional, how the world should be around you. And you start to discover where that came from, right? And so on the surface, maybe we're saying yes too often, and that's our default. But how did we get there? What was going on in your family growing up? What happened if you said no? What happened to you in a social setting if you said no to a group of girls in 7th grade or your senior year, right? Were you abandoned? Were you made fun of? Were you isolated? Does it feel safer for you? Was this a survival skill to do what everyone else wanted? So did you start to, bury that intuition to appease others, right? Going back to that. So I think if we can start to unpack, like, wait a minute, how the hell did I get here? Like, this worked for me at one point. It is not working anymore. I'm so burnt out. I'm doing things I don't even care about. So once we can start to like shuffle through and get to the bottom of that, we can start to make some changes. So I'm a strong advocate. Of course, I'm a therapist. I'm going to say go to therapy, go to coaching. I've gone to my own coaching. I've gone to my own therapy. Not only has it transformed me personally, but it has transformed me professionally as well. And I think as an entrepreneur, those things go hand in hand. My other tip would be meditation. I was so against it for so long. And I would sit there and I would hate it. And I'm like, why am I even doing this? This doesn't work. Until I reframed the purpose of it for me. I realized we didn't have to have a clear mind, right? We're never going to have a clear mind. We're going to constantly have thoughts, but it's strengthening that skill of what you're paying attention to in the moment. So when you're trying meditation and you're like, I'm thinking about all the things I have to do, that's your moment to say, oh, here I am thinking about all the things I have to do. Let me refocus to this person guiding me. And you develop that muscle of what to pay attention to when. So when you're in real life and you're distracted and your mind is racing, you can catch it quicker and say, here I am again thinking about 1,000 things. Let me redirect my focus to one thing at a time. And my last tip would be getting used to sitting in silence. I remember as a kid, my mom sometimes would force us to be quiet in the car with no radio. I'm like, why is she doing this? This is so boring. Here I am now as an adult sitting in my car in silence. I have a 35-minute commute to my office, and I often just turn the music off. I'm not listening to Audible. I just sometimes need to hear myself breathe. And that, for some reason, gives me some shift between my work life and home life to kind of think through things, feel things, give myself that space to then dive into the next part of my day.
I love that. And I think that goes directly in line with what Lindsey was saying. Like, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
And for you in those moments, like, I need silence. I need to quiet the noise in my head. And sometimes it's like, I need revigoration. So I need a podcast or a book, or I need music or whatever. But it's taking that moment to say, what do I need?
Yeah.
And then honoring that.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah.
Justine, I just want to say real quick too, like when I learned more about meditation, I was that person that was like, I can't do this. This is so boring. I don't want to sit crisscross on this pillow. My back hurts. Like I keep thinking about all these things. And then when I learned, I did this like 30-day Calm app, like teaching about how to meditate. And I realized that it wasn't about not thinking. And that like changed the game for me when I was like, oh, it's about thinking and then being like, wait, I'm thinking about all the things I have to do. Let's bring it back to my body and how I'm feeling right now. And then you would think again, and it's that muscle of pulling it back. That was like a game changer for me. And now I meditate every single day.
Absolutely. Me too. I actually really look forward to it now. Like, when do I get my,
it's like my peace.
Give myself 5 to 10 minutes. Like I don't have much time for anything more than that.
10 minutes and I'm good. Yeah.
Adriana, what is your relationship like with meditation?
I would say I wasn't against it at first, but it was very hard for me because I am such a busybody. And still to this day, if I feel like I just have too much energy for a meditation, and if that wouldn't feel good for me, I'm no longer rigid in my routines because I've learned I'm not designed that way. So that's when I'll do something like tapping, because just the act of being with my thoughts and my body, but moving my hands, like moving something helps me a lot. I also do walking meditations. And more recently being in the silence, like Justine said. I'm going out to Arizona in a few weeks, and every ounce of me wants to like book something while I'm there, like look into retreats. And then I have to keep pulling myself back and be like, no, I'm actually looking to shut everything off because I haven't done that in a while. So that's also a muscle, pulling that back to, nope, this is what I committed to, and this is what felt good for me. So I very much appreciate silence now too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's something that is so counterintuitive to all of us because we are just go, 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 think, think, think. I mean, the to-do list, the work, the kids, the family, everything is always circling in our brain. And to know that, okay, that's not going to go away. I can recognize it, but then come back to me. And I think that's why they call it a practice, right? There's definitely nothing that any of us master. It's just every day we try again and we try again and we try again, whatever that looks like. If it is, you know, sitting crisscross on a meditation pillow or walking or even just sitting outside and just feeling the vitamin D on your face, like anything. I think it's all what we can take that we need, going back to what do we need? How do we want to feel? And I think, and like you said too, Adriana, just in terms of not being rigid. And I think this also goes back
Did you guys lose her?
to
Yeah.
everything that we
First-
keep here. We need to do these things. If you do this, if your morning routine is this, then you're going to, oh, I am frozen a little bit. Huh? Let's see.
Now
We can hear you.
You're back.
There, is that better?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
fantastic. You know, it does go back to kind of what we hear in terms of you need to do this. Take these 5 steps and you're going to have this kind of life. And, you know, and it's, I think we all kind of touched on it. Like we're all individuals. We're all bringing in our own dynamics, what we've been taught, what we've been conditioned, what we want. And to just kind of treat us all as this monolith of, oh, you're a woman in this certain age demographic. This is what you need. This is going to make your life perfect.
The one size fits all approach clearly
Yes.
does not work. We would all be robots at this point.
Exactly. Well, and that brings me kind of to our last question as we kind of wrap this up. We've obviously talked a lot about kind of what's brought us here, where we have opportunities to make changes, to come back to ourselves, to know ourselves, to trust ourselves. If we allow us to think about what would a world be like for to have a society of women who do know themselves at their core, and every decision that they make is from this place of knowing and self-trust and self-honor and self-respect. What could the world be like? I know this is kind of pie in the sky. This is what we're aiming for, but I just love to end on this note of just thinking like this could be possible if we all commit and support and empower each other to do this. So, Justine, I'll start with you.
Sorry, we lost you for a second. I think you called on me though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
So
yeah.
I really think
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think we would flourish, right? Women have an innate power that I feel has been suppressed for hundreds and thousands of years. I mean, we're the creators of life. We literally have a portal within us that brings life into the world. So if we can create literally a human being, we have the power to literally create whatever we want. And it's trying to tear down the limiting beliefs we've developed over time that get in the way, the shoulds, the should nots of what we should look like as women, as mothers, as working women, as this, as that, culturally, societally. So if we could really chop down the limiting beliefs, this place would be phenomenal. It would really be incredible how much power women have inside of them to create things for the benefit of everybody else.
Lindsey, what about you?
I absolutely. I think you're just smiling the whole time that you were talking, Justine. Yeah, I mean, I think that if women ran the world, like it would be an incredible world. Like so much of what you just said, like we're magical beings. Like we create life, we create an organ out of thin air. Like it is incredible what we can do physically, and we dumb down what we can do emotionally and mentally. And I think if we just pulled that brick off, like we could do whatever we want. And I mean, I think women need to run the world. Like every corporation, the whole world, if it were run by women, like we're superhuman. Moms, entrepreneurs, business people, like it's incredible. And I think if we stopped being so concerned about what other people thought and just started focusing on ourselves and how we felt, not in a selfish way, but if I focus on me and feeling good in my body, and I truly believe this is a huge part of why I launched my business. I think if we each feel better as individuals, we feel better as a collective. And so if you were to focus on your daily habits that you do today, it creates your daily habits in the future. And if you feel great in your body, you expand that to all of the people around you, your kids, your partners, your friends, your coworkers, literally everyone. We feel energy. And so I think, focus on you and your daily habits, and you can do whatever you want. You can feel incredible, and you can make an actual difference in the world.
Oh, yes, I love that. I love that. Adriana, what about you? What would your ideal world look like?
I feel like this could be such a loaded question considering today's political climate.
I know. I was like, oh.
But also a really expansive moment for us in the United States, especially. Essentially what I feel is, but basically what they touched on, but it's the ripple effect. Like if I hadn't made the decision to get out of my comfort zone and talk about my trauma and talk about the tools that helped me and share this, I wouldn't have healed one of my clients from something that was diagnosed like PMDD. I wouldn't have worked with a client who then wrote about me in a book that now thousands of women have read, and she's continuing to impact other people through the work that she discovered working with me. And so it's not just about my ultimate fulfillment. There is so much bigger energy at play here. When we follow what it is that we're feeling led to, even if it's just like, what are you curious about that you haven't indulged in? Start there, because there's always a bigger purpose. My human design chart literally says I'm here to just do me, like do things that feel good for me. Like, talk about having a cool chart, right? It's like you don't have to worry about anyone else. Just do the things that get you really excited, because when I'm doing that, I'm naturally empowering everyone else around me. And now, in a few years into doing this, I'm seeing that ripple effect happen, and it's the most incredible thing. Not to mention, things come easier for you when you are in that quote unquote alignment. And I know mainstream manifestation stuff has totally wounded me with like all that positive thinking or whatever. I don't believe in like that kind of co-creation, but I do believe in the healed, embodied, empowered woman having that magnetism and seeing things that just naturally come to you way easier and in alignment when you have done that kind of work, when you have stood up for yourself and been an advocate for yourself. And then the ripple effect just happens from there. It's really magical to see.
Oh, I love that. And, and that's exactly one of the reasons that I named this series Making Waves, because I do feel it is that ripple effect of women being inspired and informed and just coming together and having these conversations, that I truly feel that those of us that are here on the panel right now, and then those who will listen to the recording later, I do feel like the content that we're sharing is going to impact our lives, whether that's, as we talked about before, a little tidbit of information, a little habit, or even at the baseline, just more awareness of, yes, we're all going through this, and in different ways and in different forms. And again, the more we talk about it, those ripple effects of, okay, let's normalize this. Let's bring it to the forefront. Let's support other women going through this. When, like, as you were talking about with you and Justine, and trying to, work through that opportunity that you both just didn't have, the energy and the time for right then. It is accepting that, like, I respect that. Great. Let's reconnect when it's a better time, things like that. So I am so incredibly grateful for the three of you for hopping on and sharing your expertise and your perspective. And, we do have a couple of minutes left. I would love to go ahead and open it up to the guests or the attendees on the panel. If you have any questions for Justine or for Lindsey or for Adriana, feel free to unmute and or let me know. And if I need to unmute you, if you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer.
I love questions.
Me too.
Alexandra, do you have a question?
Oh, I do. I'm sorry. I thought I interrupted somebody.
No, you're fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I have a question for Adriana. When you were talking about the spiritual aspect, you don't buy into like the, thought, the commercial thoughts. I'm just trying to think
The
of what you just
mainstream
said.
manifestation stuff.
Thank you. Yes, like when you say that, what's exactly are you talking about, the difference?
Good
Just
question.
to make sure I understand.
Yes. So for years, when manifestation first became a big thing, like after The Secret, everyone's probably watched The Secret, it really left out a lot of stuff. It left out the fact that you can logically think of things that you want. You can visualize them. You can write it down 100 times a day. And there's still going to be parts of you subconsciously that don't believe that's possible for you, where it feels like there's a big disconnect. Therefore, you don't actually call that in. So I went through a couple years in my life where I was doing all of that work like obsessively and getting nowhere. So naturally, I was like, okay, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. And then when I started working with the subconscious, when I started healing trauma, all of that, things just started naturally opening up for me because I had this innate believability factor, I guess I would call it, in what I actually can achieve, what I actually am worthy of, so on and so forth. Whereas before, I had all these, which I still work through all of our stories, right? We all have these ceilings that we hit to break and expand more. But I never believed that I was worthy of a great relationship or that I was worthy of making money as an entrepreneur, all these things. It was just, I wanted to believe it, but my energy was saying something different. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yep.
Good question.
And so what did you do to actually change that?
All the work that you're doing right now, Alex.
Okay.
Yep.
You're on the right
stuff. That's where my work, that's the systems that I created in my own work. That's where they stemmed from all of those years.
Okay. That's actually very interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for any of the panelists? Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you all again for joining us today, and especially to our panelists, Lindsey, Adriana, and Justine. Thank you again for your time and your energy and your expertise and sharing with us. Really quickly, if the three of you want to go around and just say kind of where to learn more about you and your work, and that way we can all make sure that we follow you and continue to gain just the juice of your expertise and your knowledge. So Lindsey, let's start with you.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at Lindsey Kaszuba Health. My website's lindseykazubahealth.com. I have a bunch of resources and just launched a Substack too. So if you're on Substack, I'm Lindsey Kaszuba Health.
Fantastic. Thank you. Justine, how about you?
Sure. My website is carinocounseling.com. I'm on Instagram as Thoughts from the Couch, and my podcast is Thoughts from the Couch.
Fantastic. And Adriana?
My website is my full name, adrianakeefe.com, but I'm mostly on my Instagram and podcast. My Instagram is Adri Keefe, A-D-R-I Keefe, and the podcast is the No BS Human Design Podcast.
Fantastic. And for those of you that would want to connect with me, my Instagram is BPG Personal Branding. My website is barbarapikegonzales.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn there as well. And my podcast is Know, Show, and Grow Your Worth. So again, thank you all so much for joining us and for listening. This is being recorded, so we'll make sure that everyone does get a copy of this to listen to, and maybe it's kind of a walking meditation again, just listening to it and getting re-inspired. So again, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time and your attention and your expertise, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. This will be a monthly program of the Making Waves virtual panel discussion. So I would love to see you again next month. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.